Today, we will look at torture devices used in Europe and Asia. Without extending the introduction any further, let's take a look together at what these torture devices are, how they were used, and on whom they were applied. First, 1. The rack, England. Between the 13th and 17th centuries, especially in England in dungeons such as the Tower of London, the rack was one of the most well-known symbols of medieval European justice. Those accused of treason against the king, espionage, betrayal, or crimes considered threats to state authority would face this device. Consisting of a large wooden platform, iron rollers, and heavy chains, the rack was not merely a mechanism, but was regarded as the visible form of authority. When the prisoner was bound, the atmosphere of the dungeon would change. The light of the torches cast long shadows across the stone walls. In the legal understanding of the Middle Ages, the goal was not only punishment, but also extracting confessions and establishing deterrence. For this reason, the power of the rack came less from its physical consequences and more from the fear it created in people's minds. Many prisoners surrendered even before being laid on the rack, crushed under the weight of rumors alone. Today, this device, displayed in museums, reminds us of a cold historical reality. Power often speaks through silence and waiting, and justice, in every age, does not always appear the same. 2. The breaking wheel. Germany and France. Between the 12th and 17th centuries, the breaking wheel was widespread in Germany and France and was one of the most recognizable symbols of medieval public justice. It was preferred in cases of banditry, highway robbery, major crimes, and accusations of threatening public order. The wheel was usually erected in the middle of town squares so that the punishment would not be hidden but openly visible. For medieval society, justice was a lesson learned by watching. Therefore, the silence of the crowd was part of the process. The ceremonial atmosphere, accompanied by soldiers and priests, was a display of state power. The strength of this device came not only from its physical aspect, but also from the fear it created in people's minds about crossing the line. Because it is mentioned in many court records and chronicles, the existence of the breaking wheel is documented with certainty. Today, for historians, this device is not only a means of punishment, but also a concrete example of how public authority was staged. It leaves one with this question: is the crowd part of the stage, or is the stage part of the crowd? 3. Strappato. Italy and Spain. Used mainly in Italy and Spain between the 14th and 17th centuries, strappato was one of the best-known mechanisms of Inquisition interrogations. Political offenders, those accused of heresy, and defendants from whom confession was demanded would face this device. The arms were tied behind the back and the person was suspended beneath a pulley rope system from the ceiling. The real pressure was often hidden in the waiting period before the act itself. Footsteps echoing off stone walls, the flickering light of torches, and the silence of priests were all part of the scene. Strappato targeted the fine line between a person's will and fear. Because it is frequently mentioned in official records and church documents, its existence is beyond dispute. Today, this mechanism shows how a culture of interrogation emerged when faith and power came together in history. It is a harsh yet instructive reminder. Uncertainty is often the heaviest pressure. 4. The pillory. Across Europe. Between the 12th and 18th centuries, the pillory, or neck and handboard, was used across almost all of Europe and was one of the most familiar punishment devices of the Middle Ages. It was applied for theft, perjury, disturbing public order, and minor crimes. The aim was not only punishment, but also to enforce discipline through public shaming. The person locked into the wooden frame would be left in the square, the crowd would see them, and receive the message that justice was visible. This method shows that in the Middle Ages, punishments addressed society as much as the individual. Its existence is certain because it is frequently mentioned in city chronicles and municipal records. Today, symbolic pillory structures still stand in many European cities. The pillory reminds us that sometimes punishment is not only the price of an act, but the bare feeling of being excluded from society. Authority speaks through people's gazes. 5. Kang. Wooden neck collar. China. Used in China between the 10th and 18th centuries throughout the Song, Ming, and Qing periods, the kang was one of the best-known punishment devices in Asia. This large wooden collarboard system was applied in crimes such as disturbing public order, theft, and defiance of local authority. The goal was not only bodily restriction, but also discipline through public exposure. The offender would be kept inside this wooden collar in crowded streets and squares, and the gaze of society became part of the punishment. Because it appears often in East Asian chronicles and court records, its existence is unquestionable. The kanga is a clear symbol of the notion of correction through shaming in Asian legal culture. Examples seen in museums today remind us that punishments were shaped not only in closed dungeons, but also in full view of society. The kanga whispers this message: if you break the rule, you account for it before the public. 6. Tsurushi, suspension interrogation. Japan, Edo. Used in the 17th to 19th centuries during Japan's Edo period, tsurushi is a well-known method recorded especially in political accusations and investigations of religious conversion. The apparatus called tsurushi consisted of a beam fixed to the ceiling, a pulley rope system, and ropes that tied the arms. It was not a single machine, but a simple yet effective suspension setup. The method of application was based on tying the person's arms and keeping them suspended with this rope system. The real pressure was often hidden not in the application itself, but in the waiting beforehand and the feeling of being left alone. Closed interrogation rooms, doors covered with rice paper, softly speaking officials, and a heavy silence. The ceremonial and disciplined aspect of Japanese justice came together in this atmosphere. Official records and missionary accounts clearly confirm the existence of this method. Today, tsurushi is regarded as one of the dark but instructive pages of Japanese legal history. It shows this: in the East, as in the West, the language of authority is similar. Fear often comes before words. 7. Bastinado, Falaka, Ottoman Empire and Middle East. Used in the Ottoman Empire and the Middle Eastern geography from the Middle Ages through the early modern period, falaka is one of the best-known punishment methods whose existence is seen in countless archival records and miniatures. The falaka setup was not a single large machine. For immobilizing the feet, bindings or straps were used. The feet were placed on a stick or a board that held them, and blows were struck to the feet according to a determined number. The method of application was based on immobilizing the person's feet and subjecting them to disciplinary punishment in enclosed spaces. It was mostly applied in barracks courtyards or in the inner parts of government buildings. It is known to have been used in cases of behavior contrary to state order, disciplinary offenses, and interrogations. The power of falaka came not only from its application, but also from the fear it created merely when its name was mentioned. For historians today, falaka is not only the dark side of the Ottoman understanding of punishment, it is also a document showing how public order was maintained. It teaches people this: wherever the geography may be, power takes similar forms. The language of justice changes according to the mentality of the period. 8. Cage exposure. India and Central Asia. Throughout the Middle Ages, cage exposure used in India and Central Asia was a method based on exhibiting criminals in iron or wooden cages in public spaces, whose existence is confirmed by chronicles and travelers' accounts. The cages were human-sized structures of iron or thick wood, most often fixed to the ground. They were placed in marketplaces, castle gates, and main squares. The practice was based on keeping the person in this cage in a public area. The aim was not only restriction, but also to create a lesson before society. The person regarded as a criminal was left face-to-face with the gaze of the crowd and experienced feelings of loneliness and shame as part of the punishment. The strongest aspect of this method was that it left its mark more on the mind than on the body. Cage exposure tells us this: in the Middle Ages, punishment was not directed only at one person, but was a message given to the whole society. Authority wanted to be visible. Therefore, punishment was made visible as well. Today, this practice is a striking reminder of how the understanding of justice has changed throughout history. Centuries have passed, methods have changed, but the shadow of authority over human beings has never disappeared. If you enjoy history videos like this, you can subscribe to the channel and like the video. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments.